Grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. What's up, Powerlifter's Den family? Want to rep the podcast and look good while doing it? Check out my official merch store at plden.company.site. We've got tees, hoodies, beanies, hats, and more, and gear that'll keep you motivated in and out of the gym. Every purchase helps support me and the podcast and keeps the den growing strong. So whether you're hitting a heavy squat session or just lounging in style, we've got you covered. Head to plden.company.site and grab your merch today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I want to bring on Jason Legrand out of Georgia. He is a raw lifter who has totaled over 2,200 pounds in the 242 weight class. Jason, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, my name is Jason Legrand, as you said. Competed for about 9 years in powerlifting. I'm 31 now. I got started when I was like 22, 23 roughly, into the sport. So kind of a late bloomer getting into it. But yeah, I've just kind of always stuck to the wraps and knee sleeves kind of thing. So
yeah, so one of the things I was seeing when I was checking on Open Powerlifting is one of the first meets on there. I don't know if it was your actual first meet. Sometimes it can get a little lost in translation, but you kind of started off with a pretty solid total of, I think it was like mid 1800s, which for a lot of people, like at this point, I still haven't gotten up to that yet. So before we kind of dive into your career itself, let's talk a little bit about your background and kind of what got you from training into the onto the platform.
Gotcha. Yeah. So honestly, like I used to be like super overweight. When I graduated high school, I was like close to 300 pounds. I had like a 44-inch waist. So I never really took lifting very seriously. I did it in high school and stuff just because, football and baseball, track, stuff like that. You kind of have to get forced into doing it for the gym. But never really took it seriously until really my grandfather started having a lot of health issues. And listening to his doctors pretty much tell him essentially like, hey, if you just got out and walked like a mile or two a day, 75% of your health problems would just go away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's taking like 3 handfuls of pills, breakfast, lunch, dinner kind of thing. And I'm like, man, like, I don't want to be in and out of the hospital when I'm older. I don't want to live that kind of life. So I started getting into the gym more so just to kind of just be healthy. You know what I mean? So I went from 293 down to 200 was the smallest I got.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was just kind of more like doing the Arnold blueprints, that you can find on bodybuilding.com and stuff like that. And so I've just kind of did that for a few years. So I was like 21, 22. And then through a mutual friend, I met a guy named Wayne, or Big Wayne is what a lot of people know him as. He's like a master class bench presser, world bench presser. So he kind of got me into it. I was already decently strong, but never really pushed for weight. I just kind of was doing it for health. Just kind of wanted to be looking good. You know what I mean? And so when he first kind of started training with him, I was already squatting like 560, 570 for a couple reps. I was already benching around 405 for like a RPE 10, basically like a 1 rep max. I had never deadlifted before. So like coming through high school, power clean was like the big thing coming through high school. And so I had never done deadlifting. I always thought it was stupid. I was like, oh, you're just picking the shit up, putting them back down kind of thing. So I signed, he was like, well, there's a competition. After about 6 or 7 months of training with him, he's like, oh, well, there's a competition at the local gym down the road. He's like, you should sign up for it. It was like 3 weeks away. So 3 weeks out, I started deadlifting. A lot of prep, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
3 weeks. So very first, just like small local town meet, obviously was unsanctioned, is why it doesn't show up in open powerlifting. First powerlifting meet, I ended up squatting 600. I benched 413 or 415. They were using pound plates, and I deadlifted 545.
There we go.
First meet. So it was like a 1560, 1570 total. So I kind of just fell in love with it. You know what I mean? Like, coming through high school, I was very competitive in sports. So I was like, this will give me like that level of making something I already enjoy competitive, kind of keep me motivated and push me a little harder in the gym. And that's just kind of where it started.
Yeah, and for me, it kind of had a similar idea. I was training for, I mean, I just started getting in the gym for sports in general, and then I was kind of enjoying training heavy and with football. Like, obviously, lifting is a big part of football, and once you kind of get into that, you start falling in love with the lifting just as much as you do playing on the field. And then next thing
Mhm.
you know, I'm signing up for a push pull meet, and then from there, now I'm fucking doing meets left and right, hosting meets, and doing all this shit. So
Yeah.
it's funny that how once you kind of get involved in the sport, how much it just takes you by the hold.
Yeah, that's what it did to me, man. And for the first few years, I want to say honestly, it became like an unhealthy obsession.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It kind of like grabbed a hold of me, and it was just kind of like all gas, no brakes. It was like a numbers thing to me. You know what I mean? And it was just it became an unhealthy obsession that it days that I didn't even feel like going to the gym, like I was miserable. You know what I mean? I didn't enjoy it anymore. And yeah, it it definitely had a lot of success with it, but doesn't mean I was enjoying it.
Yeah. And I think that's a little topic we can dive into is kind of um the spark in a pan, or like the people that kind of just like come onto the scene for a few years like full throttle and then you never hear from them again. I think
Mhm.
something that I've been learning over the past few years, especially from people on the podcast that are kind of retired now or have had their full career in powerlifting, is some of their keys to longevity and kind of maintaining that love for the sport without burning out.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely a topic I could probably talk about for quite some time.
Yeah, so I guess one of the first things for you was kind of at what point did you realize that maybe you were going a little bit too, like, I guess, balls deep into this?
Honestly, it was probably when I think I was 25. So I was about probably 3.5 years in. Um, I tore my pectoral tendon practicing or training,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like that reset button hit. And because I had to wait about 6 or 7 weeks before I could even get it reattached, because it was like a full blown like 4 inch scar across
Oof.
my shoulder, reattachment, and I was in a sling for like 2 months, and then tons of rehab. And um, I know a lot of people nowadays, this was back before I knew anything about like taking peptides, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, when they take surgeries, they run a bunch of peptides and have incredibly fast recovery times. I didn't know anything about peptides back then. That's been a very new, within the last year or two, thing that I've known or learned about them. Uh, so it was just that long term, like having to grind every day. I was doing rehab for my shoulder 3 and 4 days a week. I went from bench pressing 500 pounds regularly in the gym to dumbbell pressing two and a halves. You know what I mean? So it was just a very big setback that was like a humbling experience of like, we weren't having fun doing what we were doing, but now I have a full time job. I work in construction, so a trade skill electrician. So it's like powerlifting isn't my career. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I don't have 60, 70 online clients. I'm not making a living off of powerlifting. So sitting in my room for 3 or 4 months because I couldn't go to work,
Yeah.
just sitting around the house, thinking about the direction my life was heading. It was just kind of like, man, like I got to think about my future. You know what I mean? Like I can't just ignore issues that keep coming up, like little minor issues here. I can't just have that mindset of, oh, it's minor, we'll just push through it kind of thing. You know what I mean? And um so it was more so that button of just like, hey, we need to slow down. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and I guess a hard question to ask would be, like, obviously, like a setback, an injury like that, kind of like, I guess, kills the momentum you have from obviously increasing your total and training and kind of that whole rhythm. But I guess, kind of
Mhm.
looking back at it now, would you say that you're maybe grateful for some of the lessons or like some of the time that you've learned with the recovery, like mentally?
I tell people that all the time, man. I was like, there's no telling how much worse things probably could have spiraled for me had I not had, I call it a minor injury, because I mean, you've seen some people like double meniscus tear, double quad tear, just straight blowing both knees out at the same time kind of deal. And,
Hmm.
really like catastrophic injuries. So I tell people all the time that as much as I hated it at that time, going through that, like I'm glad it happened because it really pushed that reset button of, hey, we need to slow down. We need to think about, because is as stupid as it sounds, like I like being able to go to the gym and squat 700, 800 pounds, any day of the week. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Same thing with deadlifting. It's just something about it to me that's just like gratification and satisfying. And, but we had to reconfigure our brain and the way we think and view lifting as a, hey, I have a full-time job that I make a good living on. You know what I mean? I can't injure myself to take away from potentially losing my job. You know what I mean? And so that's I'm grateful that it happened, but at the time I don't suggest it because at the time, when I was 24, 25, I was number two in the 242 wrapped
Yeah.
division all time. So, me being young like that, I was like on top of the world. You couldn't tell me shit. I was just all gas, no brakes. And so it's one of those things that when it happened, I was like, I guess I can break. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think kind of someone that like personally, knock on wood, obviously, but I haven't had like a setback like that yet, but I'm obviously still young and like in that momentum phase, I guess you could call it. So I think like anyone that's like around my age or kind of hasn't gotten to that setback yet, which for most people is an inevitable thing,
Mhm.
is to listen to people like you or other people in the sport that have done that and kind of go into it with that mindset of like, all right, if I tear my fucking pec right now, what am I going to do? Am I going to
Yeah.
spiral out of control and go into a mental health crisis? Or am I going to have a plan? Am I going to have a different hobby to rely on? Because, like you said, no one makes, there's like two people that make a career out of powerlifting, and it's a 10-year career.
Hmm. And the ones that are making the careers out of it are like all the people who are on top, like your Jamal Browners, your John Hacks, your Colton Eichelbergs, like all the top end people, like Brianne Terry, Joe Sullivan, because Joe Sullivan established himself, back when he was on top of his world, back in his
Exactly.
weight class. And, once you stamp your name into it, as long as you really push, I'm not a big social media person. You know what I mean? Like, I think I got like 5,500 followers on Instagram. It's just, I'm not a big social media pusher or promoter or anything like that. I mean, I post my stuff, but it was just never something I really pushed to try to make doing online work my career. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I spent 5 years in an apprenticeship program to learn how to do a trade skill. And that's the direction that, I sent my life moving forward.
Yeah, and like I said, with the people that actually made a career out of powerlifting, it's not what they do on the platform. That's how they get their name, but it's the coaching, it's the supplements, it's the brand deals, it's doing shit like this. There's no way you can actually make a living off of competing.
Correct. I mean, and especially with how powerlifting is now, I mean, about 6 or 7 years ago, you might could have if you were one of those top ranked people, like I added up the annual amount of payouts when Yuri Belkin was traveling around doing like the US Kern and stuff like that. If you did 4 or 5 of those meets a year, you'd make over $100,000. But
Oh shit.
that's when meets were constantly paying, 15, $20,000 payouts. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, you're lucky now if you go to a meet that's paying 8 to 10 grand. You know what I mean? So I feel like that there's not quite I don't want to say the participation, but the support in the sport anymore. Like how did competition go from 20, $25,000 payouts to under 10 grand now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to think about like maybe why that happened because the sport itself is still growing, but I
Mhm.
mean the culture of the sport is changing so much, and it's so divided, obviously between raw and equipped, and all these different feds, and like there's no like cohesiveness to where like if there was one fed and every sponsor just sponsored these meets, and there's four a year, like there'd be $100,000 payouts, but
Yeah.
everyone wants their own piece of the pie, and then there's no pie left.
Yeah, everybody wants to buy and eat at the same time, and it unfortunately it doesn't work like that, you know. And um, one company I can say that's always been a big promoter and big supporter of powerlifting is Pioneer. You know, they had their own meet for a couple years, and you know, there's several meets and schools and colleges and stuff that they pump money into, and you know, a company like that, I mean, you can't pump 15, $20,000 payouts into 40, 50, 60 meets a year. That's
Yeah.
just not even feasible.
Yeah. So with just before we kind of dive into some of your meets, what was let everyone know what your best total was and your best lifts were.
So my best total was 22, 26 or 1,010 kilos, I believe. And that was with a 909 squat, which at the time was the all-time world record, which I previously broke my one before that, which was 903. Of 480, 485 bench, I believe is what that meet was, and then 832 deadlift. And you said what else? My dots?
No,
Well,
I, I
oh,
do not care about dots.
I don't either. I think it's like
I'm a
606 or
275er.
something
Dots
with
doesn't
that,
apply to
but
us
yeah,
anymore. but
yeah.
that's another thing too now is that's another big division of the sport is total versus dots. That's like with the reach rumble, like that was cool to see like a total meet like where you have the big dogs out there like basically just who can move the most amount. But
Yeah.
I think that's where one of the bigger divisions comes through is um the old school culture was I train to look big, and then oh I'm also big but I want to be strong, so I'm going to compete. Now it's I want to stay in the same weight class for the career. I want to cut. I want to continue to cut. I want to try to up my total by 5 pounds every 4 years just so I can have a 2 point dots increase. Like that's I think that's one of the big divisions.
Listen, the only reason why I stay in my weight class the whole time I've competed is, dude, when I get like 260, bro, I can hardly breathe. I don't know how people move up to like 275 from 242
I'm
because
trying right now. It's not fun.
yeah, brother, like my body just does not handle it. And I think because like a lot of that weight moves into my midsection, like when I'm trying to bulk, a lot of that weight holds and that bloating holds in my midsection. Bro, I can barely breathe. And like my girl, like she gets mad at me all the time when I'm like 260, 262, because dude, I'm snoring terribly. And then it's like, I'll dial back the diet, I'll cut some weight, get down to like 250, 252, snoring's gone, done. I can breathe, I can get up the stairs without being out of breath. You know what I mean? So I'm just a heavier 242. I make that 10, 12, 13 pound cut. I'm good, man.
Yeah, and I think at this point in my career, like I'm gonna try to continue to fill at 275 just because I have a big frame. But a few
Yeah.
years down the road, like if I'm dense enough and like I'm making progress where I want to be, I'll probably start cutting because I've gotten up to the heaviest I got was 267, and I looked like the fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow dude, and it was not fun. I could barely breathe. It was horrible. I don't know how motherfuckers walk around at 300 pounds lean like year round.
Bro, I know 2 years ago between Christmas and Thanksgiving, dude, I probably got the heaviest I've gotten since I lost a tremendous amount of weight. I was at 271 between the holidays. Bro, I felt like I was waddling everywhere I went, breathing. Like, dude, I'd get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom to use the restroom and get back in bed. Bro, I'm out of breath. And I'm like, nah, man, I can't. I'm not a 275er. You know what I mean? Like it's just granted it was a bunch of shit, like holiday food, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like a healthy bulk or anything, but I don't know, man. I'm just one of those people. I'm content with my size, like I'm not small, I'm not massive, you know what I mean? And I feel like 250, 255 is just a solid walk around weight for me. And I think I look healthy. I feel healthy. I don't have knees and ankle issues, and I don't get up in the middle of the night and back in bed and I'm out of breath. I don't snore and bring down the roof. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly, and I think that's part of what's changed for the better over the years is you see have like in each weight class, like 10 years ago, you wouldn't see a 275 with abs.
Yeah.
5 years from now, you're probably going to see a super heavyweight with abs. Like it's
Well, I
just
mean,
changing so much that it makes the totem pole of just not only like what people look like, but how long they can compete as well as how high their ceiling is. Like for example, like at the time your world record, like now people are starting to hit that occasionally. Like it's crazy the change and
mhm. Well, that's like your Danny Grigsby and your Nick Dupree. They're just 275ers and they're jacked.
exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's just mind blowing because Dan's like 6'1", I think, and I'm 6 foot. So Dan's not even much taller than me, but dude, like he's just it's like 7, 8% body fat. He's just so lean. And so when I go to meets and he's there, I'm gonna see him at Ghost Clash here in about 7 weeks. I'm always pumped to see Danny. He's such a cool dude, man. Um, Dude, he is just a monster, and it's like our legs are about the same size, but dude, his upper body is just so much bigger. My God, man, like I can't hold that kind of weight, I'm just uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Dan, if you see this, reach out to me. But so
Oh
yeah, with the Ghost Clash coming up, I know that's obviously a. I'd say right now it's that and the American Pro are the two biggest raw meets, at least attention wise and like roster strength wise. Those are the big dog meets, kind of what we have now.
yeah.
I know you've competed. You said you've competed there before, correct?
Did Clash?
Yeah.
Yeah, I competed at Ghost Clash too. So not last year, but the year before last.
So maybe tell us about besides the actual competition, just the experience, maybe with Alex, the performance they put on, and just give us a little spiel about it.
Oh man, Alex, it's probably about one of the smoothest running meets I've ever been to. Um, and you would figure like something like the US Kern or something would probably be smooth. That meet was really not that smooth running. But anyway, that's the competition was hectic. That's a whole nother conversation. But what Alex has with the Ghost Clash, man, and I also did the Ghost Summer Classic or something a couple years ago too, which was just like a more local small meet. But um, all of his meets that he puts on, man, they're super smooth running. They're very efficient. He's definitely has lifters in mind when he puts these meets on. Like he puts them on at the Tank Brewery, so it's at a brewery, which is cool. Get done lifting, go have beer.
Yeah,
It's great.
exactly.
But especially for someone like me, I'm a super big beer guy. But he makes sure that everything is set up in the back, that there's enough equipment for everyone to use. You're not having to wait in those like long lines where 6 people are using 7 people using one mono or something like that. He's got tons of energy drinks for people free, you know what I mean, to just grab and go. Um, he he puts on a great meet, man, and not just that. I mean, he's all around just a great guy. Talk to you about anything, tell you about anything, help you with whatever you need. Um, Ironically enough, at the American Pro this past year, for whatever reason, I don't know how, but somehow they had me entered in at the 100 kilo class and not the 110 kilo class. So when I weighed in at like 108.6 or something like that. The next day, when I was about to compete, they had me on as a guest lifter
What
because
the fuck?
I missed weight. I had no clue. I hadn't even looked at the roster or the flight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Alex was there. Alex come over there. He's like, "Bro, do you know they have you as a guest lifter?" I'm like, no." He was like, "Yeah, bro, look." And he's like sitting there scrolling and showing me. And I'm like, "Well, what the fuck do I need to do?" You know what I mean? Like, he was like, "That means you missed your weight." I'm like, "Nah, let me tell you something. Your boy dieted down and sat in that sauna, and I did my cardio." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just happened to be a typo in the system. So I guess instead of hitting 110, they doubled up on the zeros instead of the one. And yeah, so he got that fixed for me. Obviously, I've never competed 100 kilos in my life ever. You know what I mean? But back to the Ghost Clash, it's just a super well ran meet. All the judges every time they're very consistent. Every time I've been, I went and watched one time. So It's very well ran. It's about all I can say. They do pretty solid payouts. I think first place overall, like 6 or 7 thousand, I believe. So it's a pretty solid payout too, for the lifters. And there's food, super healthy menu during the competition, like your chicken and rice. They do a breakfast thing too. So he gets it all set up, man. It's really just geared towards the lifter, and this is what the lifters want to eat while they're competing. So we're not going to have a bunch of like greasy ass pizza and hot dogs and bar food kind of thing. So um, I love going down there just to watch more, let just to be able to compete.
Yeah, and I think when meet directors kind of actually keep the lifter in mind versus lining their own pockets, you see a
Yeah,
lot better outcome of meets, and that's something that with my meet coming up that I'm hosting at Evolve in, let's see, what, 2 weeks basically. Yeah, it's all about the lifters. Like everything I've done for this is for the lifters, trying to get a good prize pool, making sure I'm picking good judges that will be consistent, making sure that I have all the fun stuff like the lights and the fog machine and the good
yeah,
playlist and like all the small things that go into it that make the lifters experience better rather than, okay, I'm gonna collect all their money, I'm gonna get the cheapest shit, and I'm just gonna watch them compete.
yeah. And I think, like you said, I think that a lot of these meets try to do a little too much, like towards media, or trying to show off a little too much. Like there's nothing wrong with having nice things, but you can go a little overboard. You know what I mean? And I feel like that takes away from the lifter. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things that do nice things that the lifters want.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And that's just kind of it's simple. Power lifters are very simple people. You know what
yeah.
I mean? We don't need anything super crazy. Feed us, give us energy drinks, and let us lift.
Yeah, and that's something that like with the sponsors, obviously I've had tons of friends and people and like obviously some of the brands like are friends with, and so I've been able to get good sponsors for that and such. But as far as like you said, kind of the media aspect of it and stuff, like I think one of the problems with some of the federations or just people in general, they care too much about, oh, how's this going to look on Instagram or how many views is this going to get, rather than looking at it from the perspectives of if I'm competing at a meet, what do I want to see? What would I want to win for prizes besides cash? Like what would I want to see in a swag bag? Like just different things of thinking about it that way.
Yeah, and it's like if you have a meet that has like 1,000 people attending, like just 1,000 people there, don't change anything. You know what I mean? Like the odds of getting 1,000 people to watch a powerlifting meet in person is incredible.
Yeah.
I think when I went to the US Kern, which at the time was the biggest powerlifting meet in the world, I think there was only like 400 and 500 people there. You know what I mean? So it's like if you have a meet that's successful, just don't change anything.
Exactly.
Keep doing what you're doing because that obviously worked. You
Ex-
know what I mean?
exactly. Like if
And
you make a good meal, don't change the recipe.
exactly. Yeah. Just like that, man. If you perfect something and it's huge, like it's a huge hit, don't change it.
Yeah. So
And
as far, oh yeah, keep
no, go
going.
ahead. No, you can go ahead.
Okay. So I know you said like the episode questionnaire that you kind of saw maybe the camaraderie is a little bit different nowadays. More so in the raw world, just because the idea that equipped, like you kind of rely on others, whether it's setting your shirt and all that bullshit, but like you kind of need a crew versus raw. You can kind of get away with going on your own. Like yes, everyone should have a coach, but you can do the damn thing all by yourself. So maybe tell us about over time how you've kind of seen that shift.
Yeah, man. So when I first got into powerlifting, like when you're one of those people that are on the top, everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody wants to be around you. You know what I mean? And and then it's like kind of just become a big media thing. And as it started shifting over the years, people start getting past in records, and your numbers aren't as progressive as they were, which it doesn't matter who you are. At some point, numbers are going to start plateauing. Like you said, you're going to get that. You're lucky if you get 5 pounds in a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like as it shifted, you see some of those people who have continued to just stay on top because they're just big while they're big. and it becomes like a clique of people. Like those people used to associate with you, but now you're not number two or number three anymore. Maybe you're number six or number seven or number eight. Like those people won't even hardly talk to you anymore. You know what I mean? Or they might walk by and like, yo, what's up? And just keep walking kind of thing. And it's just I don't understand, man. You know what I mean? It's just like I treat everybody the same. You know, if you got a 1,200 pound total, brother, I'm gonna treat you just like the guy next to me is totaling 2,400 pounds. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
and I feel like it's just a big social media thing as well. You know, people want to get together, they get in these cliques, you know, they want to take these videos and all these pictures together, you know, and they stay in their groups. You know, I've seen those groups of people go out, 12 and 15 people go out in a group together. You know, they're at the meet together, they go out to eat together, like they don't do anything with anyone else or talk to anyone else. They're just in their little group of folks, you know what I mean? And I feel like when I first got into it, you know, I don't feel like it was quite that way, you know, because I talk to everyone. You know, I don't care who you are. You know, I don't care how strong or how weak you are. I'm just gonna talk to you, dude. I just like good people.
exactly.
Um, and now that I'm like kind of got out of the raw classic of wraps and, you know, I've tuned it back. I mean, I still compete at the American Pro, but like I've tuned it back. And honestly, I really enjoy just doing smaller meets. And I don't want to say Ghost Clash is a smaller meet because it's such a well known meet, but it, I feel like the way Alex puts it on and the people that are there, like it's all camaraderie. Everybody's laughing, everyone's cutting up, everyone's having a good time together, everyone's cheering for everyone. You know, if someone fails like their third squat attempt, you know, there's five or six people that are dabbing them up. Hey, bro, good fucking try, you know, stuff like that. Like that's what I used to miss or what I miss, you know what I mean? And some of the bigger meets you go to, if you see someone miss a lift, they go to walk off the stage, don't nobody even say nothing to them. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like, who cares if homie's third squat was only 600 pounds and you opened at 804? No one cares. Like, tell homie good job. You know, you don't go sit over there and pity pot himself and now his bench is going to suck,
yeah, I totally
you
agree. I
know?
think kind of what you're saying before. It doesn't matter if their total is 1,200 or 24. Like when you go to a meet, if they you walk up to someone, smile, shake their hand, talk about shit. Don't talk about powerlifting. Talk about anything else because there's plenty of
Yeah.
powerlifting to be had that day.
Yeah, and I've had people that you know, I go like because typically I'm on the pro days for most competitions, so I like to go and watch the day before, you know, just for a couple hours, not the whole meet. I can't sit there. I got to go eat. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Move around a little bit, but you know, I'll have people come up like, "Hey, man, like you're Jason, right?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they'll like talk to me for a little bit, or they want to take a picture or stuff like that. Like that kind of stuff's cool, you know what I mean? And it's like I don't even care who you are, you know what I mean? Like it's just cool, you know, because I feel like I've kind of I don't want to say fell off, but you know, I'm just kind of a little more irrelevant now, I guess. But hold on, my sleeve total is getting up there though.
There we
We're like
go.
number 12. We're like number 12 in the ranks right now. We're getting there. Um, but no, I always like to mess with a couple of my buddies that are like in the top 10, like Hugh Som. I love mess with him. I'm like, bro, I'm gonna run you down. I'm gonna pass you. And you know, it's just that little friendly banter back and forth. But um, I love going to meets like the Clash, and I did like a little small local meet. I was working in Virginia for about 3 or 4 months, and they had like a little small local meet at the gym that I was training at. It was like 18 or 19 people total. You know, it was like just one big flight of people. Um, but there's like a lot of younger people in there, like 16, 17, 18 years old. And dude, they were having the time of their lives. Like they'd miss a meet. All the other kids are like telling them, like, yo, you're like, good try. You know, like they're all laughing and cutting up and smiling. And I'm like, this is what powerlifting is about. You know what I mean? Like this is what needs to happen more, which like I said, that's what I love about the Ghost Clash. It's awesome. Like it's that exact same environment and that exact same like energy from everyone. Um, so it's great, man. And I like getting back into the slightly smaller meets than the big hyped up ones, you know what I mean, that everyone raves about, you know, is I just feel like the camaraderie is not quite there at those meets. You know, you got your cliques of people, they only do their own thing. You go try to talk to them, they kind of shrug you off. You know, I don't see why you got to be like that. You know what I mean? I wasn't raised that way. Treat everybody the same. If you're homeless or a millionaire, what's up, dude?
Exactly. And I think also, like, for example, um, someone's third attempt, that's their moment. Like, it doesn't matter what the weight on the bar is. It's the heaviest they've probably ever taken. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter if it's 400 pounds or 1,000 pounds. Like, give that person their moment, cheer them on. And like, for example, one of the reasons, like, for my meet, I use some of the sponsor to get a certain MC because he's going to bring the energy. He's going to get the crowd hyped
Mhm.
up. He's going to make the lifters feel like it's their moment. So when you
Yeah.
go to a meet, like, I don't know if you've ever watched like a IPF meet stream. It's dead fucking silent in there the whole time. Like, they make a lift, it's just like golf claps. Like, it's
That
nothing
was awful.
entertaining. Like,
That sounds terrible.
so that's the type of like I said, make it their moment. It's their moment. Let them enjoy it. Doesn't matter who they are. Just hype them up.
Yeah, man, and it's like, they're sitting there, they're trying to psych themselves up for like, man, like cheer them boys on, squat, bench, deadlift, whatever it is, especially on deadlift, that third attempt,
Hell yeah.
that is the hype. That is the hype. You know what I mean? Like that is the biggest lift of the day.
Yeah, and third attempt deadlifts are probably the best part of a meet because that's when you get to see, like, everyone's fucking tired. Even the people in the
Yeah.
crowd are tired. Like, we all want to go home. Like,
I love third deadlifts, bro. Like second and third deads, dude, that's the best lifts of the entire meet to watch.
yeah, because it just comes down to straight grit. Like, you either got it or you don't. It's
How
all in
bad
your
do you
chest.
really want it?
Yeah, especially when meets where there's actual like competition like that, like the Ghost Clash or just any meet that actually has like a prize pool or best lifter where it kind of means something more than just increasing your total. Like, someone's gonna go out there and try to win. Like,
Yeah,
it gets hyped.
especially when like you have that's what's really cool about the clash is, a lot of the people are actually really close with their totals. And so like when it comes down to like that third deadlift, like they're probably 5 or 10 pounds within winning. So I mean, it is all gas, like how bad do you really want it? And it's so cool to be at that level. You know what I mean? To like watch people that put everything they have into it, man. And it's just like if they succeed, it's thrilling. The whole entire like place is just electric. You know what I mean? And even if they miss it, the place is still electric. Like this dude just tried a 900-pound deadlift for a third attempt to win. Yes, he missed it, but dude, like the hype is through the roof. Like who cares if you miss it? He fucking tried and he got really close.
Exactly. And if you're not swinging for something crazy on your third deadlift, like, what are you doing there?
Yeah, man, and it's awesome. I love that.
Because like, if you go to a meet and someone's pulling their third attempt and it's like, oh, they probably could have made another 40-pound jump. You're like, what the fuck was that? Come
Yeah,
on.
and I'm really guilty of being one of those people, man. My third deadlift, dude, my third deadlift at the Ghost, or not the Ghost. I'm talking about the Ghost at the last American Pro we did, bro. I probably had another 20 pounds in the tank. I was so upset with that, but I was just a little mentally out of it because I don't pull and train on a kabuki bar.
Yeah.
So going from a Texas bar to a kabuki bar, like it has that, it has that whippy whip in it. So I missed my first attempt because of that. And so I made like a 30-pound jump, did that. And I don't know if you've ever in a meet tried to pull and then slow down your lockout.
Yep.
So it's like you were sending all of that momentum up and then you forcefully also try to slow it down so you don't whip yourself. It is incredibly difficult.
Yeah,
So
so funny story about that. Actually, this last raw prep, like, I'm into a multiply prep right now, but the last raw prep I did, I was using like a Texas bar and just like normal plates. I didn't feel like busting out all the kilos and all that bullshit. But the meet I was competing at was using a kabuki bar with calibrated plates. So obviously, with it being way more whippy,
yeah.
all the plates still stay on the ground until it doesn't, and then they fucking launch off the ground. So I'm a very explosive sumo puller, so I'm very fast off the floor. So when those plates started coming up, it turns into a fucking helicopter. And I was holding my lockout for like 5 seconds because it looked like I wasn't done yet, but because the bar was still moving. So
Looks
I'm
like
like,
one of those earthquake bars.
pretty much, yeah. So my first attempt, I almost dropped it because the whip got to me.
Oh,
Second attempt, I slowed it down. and the bar was still moving, and I was holding it for like 3 seconds waiting for the down command. And I was like, if they don't say down, I'm gonna pass out. They gave it to me, I put it down, and I had to stand there for like 10 seconds. It was like, I'm gonna pass out. Can you please give me a quicker command? And then I just missed the third because I was tired. But
Oh
it's
God.
such a different ball game, especially like that bar can be either your best friend or your worst enemy.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I only have the warm up room to try to adapt myself to it, and so it's rough, man. You know, it's one of those bars that if you're not frequently pulling on, it's rough. I think it's a great bar for its use, but it's just unfortunate for someone who doesn't get to train with one, and then you turn around and compete with one. It's rough. It's
Yeah.
rough.
And then so I guess kind of continuing on with the deadlift. Um, when was the first time you pulled on the kabuki bar? Was it at that meet, or did you get to train with it before?
Um, the first time I pulled with a kabuki bar, honestly, I'm gonna probably say it was probably the first American Pro. I think that's where they use the yeah, I think that's where they used the first American Pro because I believe that's where Dan pulled that 1074 was the first one. Or was that the second one? I can't remember. I've been to the three of them.
I was
Either
gonna.
way, either way, I'm pretty sure it was the American Pro was the first time I'd ever even touched one. And then when I was in Mississippi last year for 3 months, 3.5 months, the gym there had a kabuki bar. So I got to train with one for a little bit, but I was just in an off season. You know what I mean? I wasn't prepping for anything. I couldn't use one for a prep or anything. Uh, so I got to use one and kind of get used to it. But then I left there and I went to Virginia and I was in Virginia for about 4 or 5 weeks. And then that's when my prep for the pro started. And so it's kind of like all I had was a Texas bar. So I went from a Kabuki to a Texas and a Texas bar for 15 weeks. And yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I've been using the F8 came out with all their bars, and their deadlift bar is like a perfect balance between the Texas and the Kabuki. It's like just whippy enough to where you can, and I've loved using it. Honestly, anything F8 makes, I'm a huge fan of, and I'm very biased, but I love F8 shit. But that bar is, like I said, it's a good balance for some people, especially if you're an explosive lifter.
Well, it's gonna be an awakening for some people this year because they changed that rule for the I think it's the is it UPL I believe is that better
PLU,
PLU.
the new
They
WRPF, basically.
yeah
Yeah.
they changed that the bar length thing and the
Oh,
Kabuki bar is too long. So now at the American Pro this year, they're not gonna be able to use it. They use a Texas bar. So it's gonna be interesting to see some of these meets that used to use the Kabuki bar having to swap back. We'll see how the deadlifting numbers change. But as I said, I mean, if anything, it helps me, going from the Texas bar and then competing with the Kabuki, but it just takes some on the fly adjusting for me is all.
yeah, for sure. You kind of just have to learn to like patience basically is a key word.
And it's one of those bars that I know how the bar works. It's just it's like riding a bike. First few steps gonna be a little wonky. First few twirls gonna be a little wonky. Once you get rolling, you got it.
Yeah. So as far as prep goes, how's that kind of going? How's that progressing for you right now?
Dude, this has been a great prep for me so far. I had a strain in my IT band about 4 weeks ago. Um, it happened in the middle of some squats, unfortunately. And so I had to take a week off. I used some peptides in my hip, injecting them in my hip. Week later, we were great. But so with that week that I took off, I actually swapped my bench day and my deadlift day around, or my squat and my bench day around. So I usually squat on Mondays and bench on Wednesday to kind of break up the two lower bodies. But now I'm benching on Monday and squatting on Wednesday. And my bench has been moving incredible. So I'm a terrible bencher. I was never really great, but I was just kind of okay. Uh, but I have a problem in my left elbow when I squat really heavy and then I turn around and bench. I have a pain and like inflammation in my elbow that affects my bench press.
Hmm.
So I think benching first and now squatting has allowed my bench press to be a little bit more successful. Because today's Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. So yesterday I benched 474 after doing several other like heavy reps moving up to that, like singular reps moving up to that. And I haven't touched 474 on bench in like 2.5 years.
Oh wow.
So like I was pumped.
Yeah.
Like 474 was like my meat goal. You know what I mean? And it's like 7 weeks out and I'm still hitting it after like for an exhaustion rep, basically.
Well, maybe the big fives in the cards, maybe.
Bro, I've never benched five in a competition, so that would be ecstatic.
I mean,
Uh,
if the peak sounds, it sounds like that's kind of what it could line up to be.
Dude, I hope so, man. Like I have really big hopes for this meet. It's just as long as I can stay healthy and strong, like I think it'll be great. The only thing that, like I said, I think the only thing that's going to affect my bench in the meet is obviously we have to squat first.
Yeah.
But um, I get an IV ran on, after I weigh in, so I get some stuff in there that should help with like inflammation and stuff. So hopefully that'll help not make my elbow hurt after squatting on meet day. So as long as that carries over, I think it'll be great, man. A big goal for my prep is to hit 810 for a double on squat. That'd be
And sleeves.
super solid. Yeah, in sleeves. That'll
Yeah.
be super solid. Like I'm aiming for 837. So I think if I can double 810, 837 should be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's your best sleeve total so far?
Best sleeve total, I think it's 21, 22, I believe. And that was actually this past American Pro. Um, I'd have to add it up, but it was an 826. Hold on. I can pull up my calculator really quick. Sorry.
No worries.
826. And then I benched 454. And then I deadlifted 837. Comes up 2117, but that's just in pounds. It's not the kilos. So I think it was like 2120 or something like that. Um, but that was my biggest sleeve total so far. So I was super pumped, and I was, like I said, I was a little upset. I probably had another 20 pounds in the tank on deadlift though.
Yeah. So I guess as far as like kind of just overall goals for this meet, what are some of yours?
Oh man, if I could squat 837, that would be a 5 kilo or 11-pound PR because I squatted 826 at the pro. 474 was the bench goal. Anything higher, we're ecstatic.
House money.
Yeah, it's just house money, man. It's great. And then if I can get back to, so my best deadlift I've ever had is 854, but that was only deadlift only.
Yeah.
Like I'd only done deadlift only, and that was actually November of the same year I tore my pec.
Oh shit.
So I rehabbed all of my shoulder. Obviously, I can't bench for shit. I think by the time I got to that deadlift, I was benching like 185. You know what I mean? So bench full power was not going to be there. But at the time, I was sponsored by Depth Before Dishonor, and they were having a meet at their gym in Oklahoma. So I flew out there, did all that, did a deadlift only, and that's where I pulled 854. So if I could pull 854 at the Ghost Clash, I'm going to say that'll be my best pull, full power. As of now, the 837 that I pulled at the American Pro is my best full power deadlift. So
Yeah. Well, I hope the rest of prep goes well. I hope you stay healthy. I think we
appreciate it.
can wrap things up here. So I'll ask you my final question. If you could give a new powerlifter or someone going into their first meet a word of advice, what would that be?
Best advice I ever give anyone new is don't worry about the weight. The strength comes to you. You focus on doing good form and controlling the weight. That is the most important thing in weightlifting, no matter what type of weightlifting you're doing. I preach that to a lot of the younger kids in the gym. We got some like 18, 19-year-old kids, 17-year-old kids in my gym that are competing. And dude, I preach that to them all the time. I said, don't worry about how much weight's on the bar. You do it right and you control it, you'll get to where you want to be.
Yeah, fully agree. I think taking your time to kind of get, like you said, get the weight where it wants to be, that comes with time. But if you practice patience, control, learning form, it's only going to set you up for success in the future.
Correct. Well, and it's also because you're strengthening your body in the right way and not just trying to sling it around and muscling it around.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time to come on. It was my pleasure.
appreciate you having me on, brother. It was a good time talking to you, man.